Hey there, my name is Kane and I'm 32 years old. I live in the suburbs of Portland, Oregon. For more than 10 years, I've been a handyman, fixing things, putting things together, and patching things up, pretty much everything people need. I used to work hard and accept every job I could get just to get by. But in the previous few years, I've developed a good name for myself. I can now choose the employment I desire. I don't work out of need anymore. I enjoy working. I have my own small space, not fancy, but it's mine with good neighbors and a quiet street. In general, my life is relatively stable. I used to be married. Yes, we broke up a while ago. We were just sick of one another. No drama. Really just quit working. Max is our 5-year-old kid. He stays with his mom, but I see him every weekend and never miss it. He means everything to me. But when my day starts, it's just me again. And I think that's the bit that gets to me sometimes, the quiet no one to come home to. I'm not always alone, but I would be lying if I said I didn't miss having someone to talk to. But that's just how life is. In any case, this story began on a Tuesday with nice weather, not too chilly. I was drinking coffee in the vehicle looking at a list of things I had to do soon. One stood out: a job fixing things in a newer area. Change out 2 light fixtures in the living room, put a flat screen on the wall, $500. It shouldn't take more than a few hours, easy money. I hit accept and called the number listed. A woman answered, speaking in a calm, kind voice with a kid in the background. She told me where to go, said she would be home all day, and we agreed I would come by around 10:00 to look around before starting. As soon as I pulled up, I saw the place neat, lawn up to date, citing a nice little porch with a hanging chair. A good place. She either acquired it recently or took really good care of it. I knocked and got my clipboard. A second later, she opened the door, brown hair pulled back. Soft features, maybe in her late 20s or early 30s, wearing pants and a sweatshirt put together, but casual. Marley was her name. "Hey, you must be Kane," she said with a smile, letting me in by stepping aside. I knew her voice. It was definitely the one from the phone. "Yes, that's me. I'm just here to check out the room and see what I have to work with." She led me into the living room, explaining what she wished to be done. The room was spacious, shiny, with big windows and basic furniture. It was clear the 2 aging ceiling lights needed replacing, and the new TV was still in the box leaning on the wall. She pointed to it and said, "That's the one I need mounted." I got the bracket, there it is. Great, this shouldn't be a problem. I'll just go get my tools, then we'll get going. Most of the time, my clients leave me alone. They do whatever they want, like make phone calls, cook, or watch TV. But Marley didn't. From the minute I walked back in with my tools, she stayed close by, not hovering in an awkward way, but certainly curious. "So how do you generally attach a TV like that? Does it rely on what's on the other side of the wall?" she asked, standing with her arms crossed, watching me take things out of the box. I answered, "Yes, that's right. First, I'll use a stud finder to make sure it's firmly attached to the framing. This monstrosity won't stay up with just drywall." She nodded, really interested. "That makes sense? I'd be scared to attempt this myself." I laughed. "A lot of people attempt it, believe it or not." She also laughed. "And then they call someone like you when it hits the ground, right?" "Yes, pretty much." We kept talking while I worked. I tried to concentrate, but she was easy to talk to and interested without being irritating. She wanted to know about the tools, how I do electrical work, and how I learned the craft. I told her that when I was a kid, I used to mend things in my dad's garage. I told her how I got weary of working in an office in my early 20s and turned that into a job. "So you like it?" she asked. "I really like it. I can establish my own schedule, work with my hands, and stay out of office politics, very hard to beat." She grinned again. "You look like someone who likes what he does. That's not common." I looked at her while I tightened the last screw on the first light fixture. "It took a while to get here, but I do like it." She pulled over a chair when I went to the TV, not even trying to hide that she wanted to stay close. If I said I didn't notice, I'd be lying, and to be honest, it didn't disturb me. She was easy to talk to, asked good questions, and there was something about her, maybe the way she looked at things, or the atmosphere in the room. There was something about this that made it more than just another job. I was halfway through putting up the TV when she gave me a bottle of water without asking. That wasn't out of the ordinary. Some customers are like that. But the way she gave it to me with beautiful warmth in her eyes made me stop for a second. She didn't say anything too much, just, "I thought you might need this." I grinned, but it stayed in my head. "Thanks," I said, wiping my hands before taking the glass. She perched on the side of the couch and kept watching me work. "Do you ever grow tired of doing things like this over and over again?" I shrugged. "To be honest, no, not really. Each job is unique in its own way, and I enjoy the beat. Some people require peace and quiet to ponder. Drilling holes and setting things up correctly helps me think clearly." She grinned and looked down at her hands. "That sounds good, having anything that makes you feel at ease." I nodded and went back to the wall bracket. "What about you? What do you do?" She paused as if she didn't know how much to say. "I used to work in advertising life at the agency, long hours, short due dates. I left about a year ago." "Oh, really, out of piece?" "Yes, and tired of chasing after clients who didn't care. These days, I work from home as a freelancer, enough to get by." There was a short pause, the kind that made you think but not feel weird. I completed drilling the last hole and stood back to see if the bracket was level. It was. As I proceeded to take the TV out of its box, she stood up and walked to the window, crossing her arms carelessly. She remarked in a hushed voice, "My ex-husband didn't think I needed a job. He told me I was wasting time on creative stuff." I didn't know what to say at first. I could tell she didn't want pity. It seemed like she needed to say it out loud. I responded with a chuckle. "He sounds like a real motivational speaker, trying to keep the mood light." That made her giggle a little bit. "He was a lot of things." "Did you two just get divorced?" I asked. She remarked, still looking out the window. "Almost 3 years now. When you're trying to forget something, time seems to fly by." I stopped what I was doing and turned to look at her. There was nothing dramatic about how she stood there, no crying, no obvious pain in her heart. She just had this calm weight in her stance. "Do you have any children?" I asked nicely. She shook her head. "No, we gave it a shot, but it never happened. He said it was my fault." I put the blame on myself, but I think the actual problem was that we didn't love each other the way we should have. I leaned against the wall and let the silence settle. I've been around enough folks to realize when someone was trying to think about something and not just talk. I finally said, "I have a son. He's 5 with me on the weekends. I don't always know what I'm doing, but I do show up. I hope that means anything." She turned around and leaned back against the window frame. "Yes, it does." We just stared at each other for a few seconds. Not in a cliched, romantic sense, more like two people who have lived through some things and are quietly admitting them. I went back to the TV, put it on the bracket, and began to attach it. She got a little closer, arms crossed again. She laughed nervously and continued, "I didn't think I'd tell you all that. I don't generally do it with people I don't know," I said without thinking. "I don't think we're strangers anymore." She gave me a look. "No, I assume we aren't." I fastened the last bolt, made sure the TV was safe, and then stood back so she could look. "There you go, strong, centered, and ready to watch Netflix." She smiled. "That's just right, thanks." She was standing nearby while I packed away my tools. She stated just as I was ready to grab the last screwdriver, "May I ask you something?" She spoke softly. "Of course, Boris." She waited just long enough for me to look up. "Do you think I have a right to be happy?" I blinked. The question wasn't casual. It wasn't one of those things folks say to make small talk. She really meant it. Maybe she was looking for something genuine, like proof that she was right, or maybe she just needed someone to look her in the eye and say what she couldn't say to herself. I didn't rush to respond, stood there for a moment, truly looking at her face. I said carefully, "I don't know everything you've been through, but from my point of view, yet I suppose you do." She stared at me, her eyes a little shinier than before. She nodded once, not in a big way, just enough to say thank you without saying anything. I finished packing in solitude, not an uncomfortable silence, but one full of something fresh. Like we both said something we hadn't said out loud before. She followed me as I walked to the door with my tools. "Thanks again, Kane," she whispered softly, "for all of it." I looked at her, Azunadler. "It was just a simple fix." She smiled softly. "It might not be that easy." For the next few days, things were quiet. I kept working and doing other things, but I couldn't quit thinking about that moment, the way she asked if she should be glad. The way she spoke, the way her eyes looked, it wasn't a flirt, wasn't a quiz, seemed honest, not cooked, like something she'd been holding back for a long time and finally let go. I usually leave a job as soon as I'm done with it. It's part of the way of life. Go ahead, get the job done, get your money next up. But this time it was hard to do because of Marley. There was something heavy about her that stayed with me, but also a lightness behind it, like someone who just needs a respite from the storm. I found myself hovering over her contact in my phone more than once. I didn't want to look like I was going too far. She was a customer, after all. But then I remembered how she looked at me when I told her what I thought. There was something real going on. I couldn't ignore it. I sent a message. Hey Marley, hope your new TV and lights are still working well. I'd still love to get that coffee if you're free on Sunday night. No stress. I pressed up to send and put my phone down. It didn't even take 5 minutes. Marley, that would be great. On Maple Street near the park, there's a tranquil place, 6 p.m. Easy, not serious. I won't lie, my heart skipped a beat. I got to the cafe 15 minutes early on Sunday. That's just how I am, always early for everything. I sat down on the patio, ordered a coffee, and waited. It was one of those places with string lights and seats that didn't match, not much, just comfortable. She got there just on time in comfortable jeans, a dark green coat, hair down this time. She seemed at ease and peaceful. Hey, she remarked with a smile as she sat down. Hey, I'm glad you made it, I said. They gave her coffee. For a minute, we just sipped in silence as we got used to the change in setting. This was no longer a job. This was different. She said I almost didn't come. Yeah, she swiftly made it clear it wasn't because I didn't want to. I did, but I wasn't sure if I was ready for anything. I nodded. I understand. To be honest, I wasn't sure if I should ask. She looked at me out of the corner of her eye. Why did you do that? I leaned back a little and thought about what to say. You asked me a question that I couldn't stop thinking about, and I don't know why, but I felt like there was more there, and I wanted to know what it was. Marley gazed down at her cup, running her fingers around the edge. There's a lot more, but I've gotten skilled at keeping it a secret. I answered, then maybe we should just start with a little. You don't have to give me anything. She took a breath. I was married for 6 years. We met when we were young, most likely too young. At first he seemed charming, gave huge promises, said he loved that I was creative, passionate, and determined. But once we were married, all of it started to annoy him. He told me to relax, stop working so hard, said my drive made him feel like he wasn't good enough. I didn't say anything. I just listened. I put in long hours because I believed in what I was doing, and he thought comfort was important by staying small. He began to lie. I learned 2 years later. I stayed, nevertheless thought I could solve it. You know how that story ends. Yes, I said gently, I do. She stared at me. We broke up 3 years ago. I've gone out on a few dates, nothing big. Every time I think anything might grow, it doesn't, or it doesn't have any genuine basis. And I began to think maybe I'm too much, or maybe I missed my chance. I said without thinking, you didn't miss anything. You just haven't met someone who sees it yet. For a second, her gaze darted toward me as if she was trying to figure out if she should trust that. What about you? She asked. What happened to you? I laughed gently. It's not as heavy, but it's not ideal either. I got married when I was 25. A year later, we had Max. He's the best thing that's ever happened to me, no doubt about it. But the marriage was peaceful. No arguments, no love either. By the end, we were more like roommates than partners. I didn't blame her for leaving first. I guess we were both just waiting for someone to say something. Marley nodded slowly, like she knew that all too well. I assume I've been busy with work and being a dad, I said. And at some point, I forgot what it was like to be noticed by someone. That last line hung in the air between us. She touched my hand across the table for only a second. She spoke softly, now people can see you. I stayed still and didn't say anything. Just looked at her for a second. It wasn't a date. Not in the usual way, but I felt something had changed by the time we left that cafe. We didn't make any plans, didn't discuss what this was. We just stood outside in the cold night air. I'll walk you to your car, I offered. She smiled. Thanks. She parked her car down the street. As we strolled, we didn't talk much. She opened the door and turned to me as we got there. This was very beautiful, she remarked. I agree. Thanks for getting in touch with me. There was a moment a beat too long, the kind that makes you think about whether to lean in or walk away. But I didn't lean in. I merely glanced at her and said, "Good night, Marley." She grinned. "Good night, Kane." And I left. The week after that went by more slowly than usual. I kept myself busy with work, primarily minor jobs, but I wasn't really into it. While I was putting together a cabinet or driving across town to fix drywall, I would think about Marley. That cup of coffee made a difference. It didn't seem like a normal chat. It seemed like the start of a connection I hadn't given myself wish for in a long time. That week, we didn't text each other a lot, only a few short messages, a check-in, a joke, nothing too heavy. I didn't want to rush things, and from the way she answered warm, yet careful, I thought she felt the same way. But the space between us didn't feel far away. It was like two people trying to decide what to do next. Then it was Saturday. I had just finished a job in the morning, replacing some bathroom tile, and was back home eating a late lunch on the porch when her name came up on my phone. Marley, that's a weird idea. Please call me when you can. I called her right away. She answered on the second ring. Hey, she said, her voice light but not sure. Okay, this could sound like I'm acting on impulse. I set my dish down. I like impulsive. She laughed in a hesitant way. I booked this trip months ago, China 1 week. I've always wanted to go there. It was going to be with a friend, but she backed out at the last minute. Okay, Mom, I responded softly, already knowing what was going to happen. And I was just sitting here thinking I don't want to travel by myself. I eventually bought the darn ticket after putting it off for years. I was going to cancel, but then I thought, what if I didn't? What if I just asked? There was a moment of stillness. She went on, Kane, would you come along with me? I stopped for a second, not because I was unsure, but because I was shocked. I didn't see that coming. We had only known each other for a few weeks, had only gone out once for real. But I wasn't scared by the thought. It made me happy. What time is the flight? I asked. Monday night. Okay, I said. Hold on. Okay, you need to think about it, or okay, you'll come. Okay, sure, I'll be there. She let out a breath like a laugh of disbelief. Seriously? Really, why not? And just like that, things changed again. I made time in my work schedule for the week, packed a small bag, and took my passport out of the drawer I hadn't opened in a while. Max would be with his mom all week, and I hadn't taken a break in a long time. We met at the airport on Monday night. When I got there, she was already at the gate sitting by the window with her carry-on at her feet. When she spotted me, she stood up, and her eyes lit up in a way that made me feel better right away. Wow, you really did it, she said. You wanted to know. The journey was long, 12 hours straight to Beijing, but we talked the whole time about everything and nothing. Family, jobs, things from childhood, things you like to eat, dreams of travel. The kind of talk that happens when you're stuck in a cabin at 30,000 feet with nothing to do but talk to one another. It was daybreak when we got there. The city was buzzing, taxi horns, heavy air, people moving all over. Marley had everything figured out. She wasn't the kind of person who would just go with the flow. We checked into a modest hotel hidden along a little side street. Not extravagant, but clean and nice. 2 beds, that caught my eye. She looked at me and smirked. Let's not make this too hard. I responded yes, mimicking her smile. On the first day, we went to the Temple of Heaven, walked around the tiny streets of a Hutong neighborhood, ate food we couldn't name on a side street. Marley was in her zone, curious open. Laura open happy. I saw a different side of her than I did at home. A woman who didn't want to just live in peace, who wanted to live out loud, not in a bad way, just entirely. On the second day, we hiked a part of the Great Wall that was less busy. I saw her climb the steps that weren't even in front of me. The wind was blowing across her hair. She laughed when she almost fell on a loose stone, yelled, "This is crazy," and turned back to me. "I can't believe I'm here." I answered, "Me neither, but I'm pleased we are." We sat on the wall for a time, drank warm bottled water, and rested. That's when she looked at me and said, "You know, I almost didn't send that text." I spent an hour in my kitchen trying to figure out if I was crazy. I answered, maybe you are, but I'm delighted you're the right type of crazy. She pushed me with her shoulder. Kane, you're not so bad yourself. The remainder of the week went by like a dream. We rode trains to Suzhou and Hangzhou, floated on boats across old canals, went to gardens that looked like works of art. We would converse until we fell asleep every night in the lobby, sometimes on the sidewalk. But we never went too far, not even once, and that made it seem more real. On the sixth night, we sat in a tea establishment in a quiet lane in Chengdu. It was getting late. Light rain fell on the windows. She looked tired yet happy, peaceful in a way that was new to me. I've never felt this close to someone I don't know well. She whispered softly, holding her cup between her palms. I said, time doesn't decide that. Some individuals you've known for a long time never see you. Some people just need a second. She nodded and carefully put her cup down. I don't want this to end when we get home. I don't either. We didn't kiss. There wasn't any dramatic music playing in the background, just a quiet agreement between two people who had finally moved on from survival mode to something greater. We walked back to the hotel that night with one umbrella, and for the first time in a long time, I felt absolutely calm. We flew back to the US the next Monday. It felt weird to fly home. We chatted less, but that didn't mean anything had changed. It was that kind of silence that only happens when you've been together for a long time. You already know what the other person is thinking. When a connection is real, stillness can be comforting. We took the same cab back to her place as we landed. It was early evening, the sky soft and pale like the light immediately before sunset. The vehicle stopped at her curb, and for a moment we both just sat there, not moving. I generally just go inside and act like nothing happened at this point, Marley said as a joke. I looked at her. Is that what you want to do? She didn't answer right away, bent down, unbuckled her seatbelt, and peered at me as if looking for something behind my eyes. No, it isn't. She bent down and kissed me on the cheek. Not fast, not romantic either, more like a vow. When you get home, text me. I said I will call. We smiled and she left. I saw her walk to her door and then she was inside. It seemed strange to drive back to my place, like waking up from a dream that came true. I couldn't stop thinking about all the little things that happened throughout the trip. The way she stared at street performers as if they were talking to her, the way she went silent as we walked by families with kids. How every time I gave her something, even if it was just a napkin or an umbrella, she said, thank you. I arrived home, took some things out of the box, and stood in the center of my kitchen for 5 minutes before I eventually called her. Hey, she replied right away. I'm back. I agree. We both didn't know what to say next to break, but not the kind that makes you feel bad. We both realized this was the time when it could either stay a memory or become something real. So I responded carefully, what now? For a moment she was quiet, then responded, well, I was thinking I could make dinner this weekend. Just a little something and you might bring Max. That made me stop. Not bad, just heavy, very important. Are you sure? I asked. I want to meet the person who is most important to you. I want to be a part of everything if this is real, which I think it is. I took a slow breath. Okay. Yes, we'll stop by. And we did. I took Max over that Saturday. At first he was shy, normal things for a 5-year-old. But Marley didn't put forth a lot of effort. She didn't rush him. She made fresh mac and cheese, had juice boxes ready, and even had him sit on the counter as she cooked. By the end of the night, he was counting to 110, and she was laughing like they'd known each other for years. It wasn't a very exciting start. No fireworks, no long speeches, but it felt steady, right? Like something we could really work with. Months moved into weeks. We began to see each other regularly, a few weekends with Max, a few just the two of us. We took our time, not because we were scared, but out of respect. In the fall, she went with me to one of Max's soccer games. I helped her put up shelves in her home office. She met my parents on Thanksgiving. Everything went smoothly. No drama without any trouble. She told me she was pregnant a few months later. She was scared. So was I. But I remember repeating, we'll figure it out. As we sat down together that night and looked at the positive test we did, the next spring we got married in a small ceremony in the backyard. Nothing big, just relatives and a few friends there. Max walked down the aisle with a ring box in his tiny hand and the brightest smile on his face. Marley wore a plain white dress. I put on a navy suit. There were no nerves, just calm. That was a while ago. I'm sitting on the same porch where I read her first message, the sun setting. Marley is inside, rocking our youngest child, Tiny June, who recently turned one. Max is outside trying to teach our dog how to catch a frisbee. Things aren't going well, but he's determined. And what about me? I'm just sitting here thinking about that day when I opened my app, saw a $500 job, and thought, this will be easy work and quick money. I came to fix something easy and went away with a new life. People talk of love at first sight. We didn't do that. We didn't crash into each other like in a movie. We got together, had a conversation, listened, constructed something slowly, quietly, and honestly. And it turns out that the simplest choices can lead to the biggest changes in your life. Would I have ever thought that putting up a TV would lead me here? Not in a million years, but I'm delighted it did. Kane's encounter with Marley offers a heartfelt lesson. Sometimes the simplest moments can spark life's most transformative connections. What began as a routine handyman job fixing lights and mounting a TV unfolded into a profound bond when Marley asked, "Do you think I deserve to be happy?" Her question, raw and vulnerable, wasn't just a plea for validation. It was an invitation to see her truly. Kane's choice to respond with honesty and stay present, from a coffee meetup to an impromptu trip to China, shows that meaningful relationships grow from listening and showing up, not forcing grand gestures. Their journey from cautious conversations to building a family with Max and baby June teaches us that love and trust flourish when we meet people in their truth without rushing or demanding. It's about embracing the slow, steady build of connection, even when it starts with a flicker of doubt. Kane and Marley's story reminds us that life's greatest changes often stem from small, brave choices to be present for someone else. Have you ever found connection in an unexpected moment or helped someone feel seen? Share your story in the comments. We'd love to hear how you've built something real from the quiet moments. If this story moved you, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell to join our community. Your support keeps these stories alive, inspiring us to embrace life's unexpected paths. Let's keep the conversation going.